I love you.
What's going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic and everything Chicago sports-related podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you tap in, hit that follow button on Instagram and TikTok at theshy.kid because we have amazing content coming for you all spring, all winter, all summer long. It's going to be amazing talking ball, talking Cubs baseball, and just overall the game of baseball as a whole. We got the Hall of Fame inductees of 2024 happening tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun to check that out. But before anything, I do want to take a second and recognize something that's far bigger than baseball, far bigger than the Cubs organization and the MLB as a whole. Our very own Rhino, Chicago Cubs legend and Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg announced yesterday that he has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. I just want to give my thoughts and prayers with him and his family in these hard times. If you see him in the city or you see him on social media, definitely show him some love and send him some prayers along the way because we all understand the battle that comes with cancer, not only for the individual, but the family and friends that come along with it. There's a lot that goes into it, far more than just that one individual person. A class act, an amazing individual, an amazing person who has been so great in the city of Chicago over the last 50 plus years. Without Big Rhino, you have a lot of conversations about who wants to come and play in Chicago. He is the Mount Rushmore of Chicago Cubs legends. And I think you have to treat that as such. So shout out to Rhino for being strong, fighting through what he's fighting through right now. We all understand it's not going to be an easy battle, but winners win. And Rhino's always been a winner, and I don't think he wants to lose anytime soon. So I'm excited to see what his journey is going to look like in the foreseeable future in his battle. Hopefully we just get nothing but love and prayers for him moving forward. But with that being said, we're going to get into it today. We got a lot of different conversations. We got a lot of different topics. First and foremost, we're going to talk about Cody Bellinger, his current state with the Chicago Cubs right now. It's crazy, man. It's crazy to see what it's going to look like. The contracts continue to have issues. The big one right now with Boras and Hoyer is the overall crossroad of where you're going to be at, what you're going to say, what you're going to do in order to be the most successful version of yourself. The reports are coming out that he is asking for north of $200 million. This was reported by NBC Chicago yesterday and other people in the MLB world. If that is the case, I personally myself, now I'm no businessman, but I personally myself see Bellinger as fit of a $200 million man. But in the eyes of Jed Hoyer and the Chicago Cubs organization, they may feel a little different. They're already in the top 10 payroll in the MLB, throwing $200 million onto that will easily put them in the top 5, if not the top 3, but we'll have to see how all that financially works out. But it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, how this is going to transpire. And we've seen time and time again how the Chicago Cubs have missed out on top-tier free agents because of not wanting to sign them on the dotted line. At the end of the day, we have to understand that it is a business. We do have a lot of different guys coming in this pipeline, and we're going to have that conversation in a little bit about the overall pipeline of the Chicago Cubs, the Pete Crow Armstrongs, the Kevin Alcantaras, even the Brennan Davises of the world, who the case is still out on those guys to see who they could potentially tap in and become the Owen Caseys. There's so many guys that you can look at and say, yeah, these guys can easily replace Belly, but it's easier said than done. Bellinger had a phenomenal season, batting over 300 with 26 home runs, leading the league in home runs and batting average. Absolute monster with over 10 steals on the year. This is a guy who plays elite Gold Glove defense at both center field and first base. It's not easy to come across a guy like this. And right now the Cubs have a lot of woes in both positions. Pete Crow Armstrong, as much as I love him and as much as I want to see him have success, that's not a sure thing. You know what I mean? You're not going to sit up here and say that a PCA in 2024 is going to bat over 300, have 26 plus home runs, and be one of the best Gold Gloving center fielders in all of baseball. That's not going to be a solidified certain case over, close the book on it. Like, it's not certain. So it's going to be an issue for the Chicago Cubs if they go into the 2024 season without a guy like Cody Bellinger. And I've been very vocal about it in the past, and I'm sure many people here agree. When you talk about building a championship caliber team, you can have the James Triantoses of the world, the BJ Murrays, the Pete Crow Armstrongs, the Kevin Alcantaras, the Cade Hortons, the list goes on, right? The Christopher Morels. That's great. But who's going to be there when it really matters? Who's going to help develop these guys into champions? For the 2016 Chicago Cubs, that was Ben Zobrist, who had already won a championship with the Tampa Bay Rays and had already won a championship with the Kansas City Royals. You look at a guy like John Lester, who won in the Boston Red Sox organization. You bring in Joe Madden, who had a winning culture already set in tone. You bring in all these different guys who have won championships in other facilities and other places, even David Ross being to that, winning in Boston with John Lester. You bring in guys who have been there. You bring in guys who have won before. And I think that's really important for the Chicago Cubs. Currently, Yan Gomes was a part of that Washington Nationals team in 2018, 2019. You have a guy like Dansby Swanson who won a championship with the Braves. You have some guys who have won championships before. Kyle Hendricks in 2016 with the Cubs. Craig Counsell hasn't won a championship, but he has been a part of big playoff games. And he's been a huge, crucial factor into that, because we look at those Milwaukee Brewers rosters from years past. They weren't top 3 rosters in baseball, but they were always in the top 5 when it came to the playoffs, and that was for a reason. But with that being said, you need to continue to solidify that. Cody Bellinger has been to over 3 World Series. He's won a World Series. He's won an NLCS MVP. He's won 2 Silver Sluggers. He's been a multi-time All-Star, a Gold Glover, an MVP. This is a guy, a Rookie of the Year. We can go on. The accolades continue. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to sit here forever and talk about it, but it matters. It matters to the conversation. Oh, well, the velocity off the bat was at an all-time low. Okay, and he hit 26 home runs. So, okay, he's coming off multiple injuries where he's trying to build his strength back up, and he still knocks in 26 home runs. Like, Cody Bellinger is so pivotal for the Chicago Cubs organization right now. Like, it's just what it is. Like, there's no other conversation. When you think Chicago Cubs baseball 2023, who do you think of? If your answer isn't Cody Bellinger or Justin Steele, you're just wrong. Unless you're thinking about Christopher Morel's walk-off home run against the Chicago White Sox. But that's real. That's a real conversation. We have to be real with ourselves. We have to say, listen, as good as we are, as great as our farm system is, we cannot move on without Cody Bellinger. Now, $200 million, I'm fine with that. $200 million over 5-6 years. I mean, that's relatively cheap for a guy who I just named all the accolades that he's had. And on top of that, let's add in comeback player of the year in 2023. It's not like he was just Swiss cheese in 2023. The man was one of the better players in all of baseball. Would have been an all-star if he didn't get injured against the Astros earlier in the year. Like, that's just real. Man, you talk about if he didn't miss those couple weeks, you're talking about a guy who hit over 30 home runs, batting over 300 with over 15 stolen bases. The best defensive center fielder in baseball. The best. I'm not trying to be biased. I've always thought that. The guy's a monster. So if you're going to sit up here today and tell me that we're better off without Cody Bellinger than with Cody Bellinger, you're crazy. Because one, I'm going to point out 3 things that I think are really important to the conversation. One, it's not your money. You know what I mean? Like, it's not your money at the end of the day. So why do we care how much they're spending on him? If he's worth it, he's worth it. Let's do it. You see, the Dodgers just took a chance on, James Paxton, who hasn't been good in 3 years, but he has that long-term and longevity of a great career to where the Dodgers are like, maybe we can fix something in him. Maybe we can get something in him. We need a lefty. He has the accolades and the career that comes with it the last 3 years. Obviously, what is it? I know it was in the Red Sox, the Yankees, and I forget the third team. But they haven't been great. I think it was the Phillies. But, you look at that and you say, okay, well, we did the same thing with Cody Bellinger last year. Maybe he can tap into something here. He did. Okay, so now pay him. That's one. It's not our money, so pay him. 2, who's the face of the franchise? Who is the leader? Who is the MVP caliber player on this team? As of right now, I don't see one. I would love Christopher Morel to be an MVP caliber player, and I believe he's going to knock in 30 to 40 home runs this year if you give him enough games. In less than 110 games last year, he had over 25 home runs. So, I mean, you give him that amount of time, I believe he's going to be the next Javier Baez of the Cubs system. You know what I mean? The next guy who really not only is the face, but is just beloved by the fans and is just an amazing talent. I would love that. But he is not number one on a championship caliber team at this moment. Cody Bellinger is the number one player on a championship caliber team. He has shown that. That's two. You need a face of the franchise. One, not our money. Who cares? Two, he's the face of the franchise. Pay him. And three, let's be completely real. What are we without him? You have to recognize what Cody Bellinger was for this offense, the runs produced, the WAR, what he was able to do, OPS, OBP, whatever numbers you want to throw at me. You can say what you want. Oh, but overall, the velocity off the bat and overall, he's just not as strong as he used to. I don't care. Who's Cody Bellinger when he was out of that lineup? And you know, I love the enthusiasm by the fans saying, yeah, but our farm system, but this, but that. And I love other people saying you have to spend money smart. And I understand that. I love that comment, by the way, Randy. Thank you for the comment. But one thing I've heard from Jed Hoyer is, you know, it's easy to make a deal. Super easy to sign a guy for $300 million. Of course it is. That's not he said that during CubsCon. That's not a hot take. I mean, I could sign somebody for $300 million right now. I'll go give Billy Hamilton $300 million. I bet you he says yes, and I make my first big league deal. Doesn't mean it's a good one. But the point of it is, you have to spend money smart. What's smarter than bringing in an MVP caliber player for $200 million at the age of 28? This isn't like he's 34, 35 years old. Comeback player of the year, batting over 300 with 26 home runs. $200 million is a steal. Yamamoto just got 300 and he hasn't thrown a single pitch. Shohei Ohtani just got 700. We're talking $500 less million for an MVP, a proven MVP, a World Series champion. Like, what do I have to sell? You know what I mean? And that's really what it comes down to. So those are my big threes to why you have to bring back Cody Bellinger. And you know, the conversations about it being north of $200 million shows me that, you know, what are we talking about? Like, you know, if you want to sell me the idea of Michael Busch and Rhys Hoskins, that's completely fine. And from reports are coming out that Rhys Hoskins might potentially go to the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, does that make a huge difference for the Cubs? Kind of, a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, the Brewers aren't a horrible organization. Like, the Brewers lost Craig Counsell, yes, but they still have a pretty solid roster. You bring in a Rhys Hoskins, let's say he has a bounce back year, a Cody Bellinger 2023-esque year. You're looking at a guy who could pump out 30 home runs just like that, like nothing. So it's like, you have to be smart. You have to understand what other moves are being made. Sonny Gray is a St. Louis Cardinal. Say what you want about Lance Lynn and company, but they're also with the Cardinals organization. That rotation got better. They still have Paul Goldschmidt. They still have Jordan Walker. They still have Nolan Arenado and Wilson Contreras. They are not that horrible. There is a chance they bounce back. The Reds with Elly De La Cruz and one of the more thought out prospects in all of baseball are on the rise. The Pittsburgh Pirates, Paul Skeens is coming eventually. You know what I mean? Jack Sawinski, Chicago kid, played against him at Taft. It was awesome, you know, but other than that, there's not a lot going on. But, you know, with the Brewers, the Reds, and the St. Louis Cardinals, you have to take them seriously when it comes to winning this division. I think we're in a great place. I really do. I think we're in a position right now where you could sit here today and say that if the Cubs bring back Belly, they are the favorite to win the NL Central. And I love this comment right here. The Pirates sneakily won 76 games. Can't sleep on them. I'm not too hype about them, but you bring in Paul Skeens, who we've interviewed on In Off the Bench podcast on Pros and Joes. Definitely check out our interview with Paul Skeens. It was a blast. Guy is literally like the general. He is an absolute stud, classic guy, classy guy. But when you look at the guys that they have in the pipeline coming up, in all seriousness, you have to take them seriously. Brian Hayes is still there. I mean, they have a lot of guys that you can look at and say, these guys are going to be important. These guys are going to be pillars of their organization. Now, who are ours? It's real, man. It's real. And Dustin brings up a comment right here that says the Pirates also have one of the best closers in the game. You know what I mean? And David Bedard's a monster. Don't get it twisted. I mean, David Bedard is an absolute stud. It's going to come down to who wants it more. You know, and shout out to my boy, Zachy boy. I'll miss you. We used to work at Wrigley together, man. And he said, Cubs need Belly, no questions asked. We got to stop being cheap. And that's real. Like I said, my 3 big reasons why you bring back Belly. Don't forget rule number 1. It's not our money. Who cares? If the Ricketts want to win, which is what should be the reason to why you want to own the Chicago Cubs, not the hotel, not the marquee network, not Wrigley World. It's not even Wrigleyville. It's Wrigley World. The shit's like a country mile of everything owned by the Ricketts. Like, if you want to center that around winning and continue to pour people into this new hotel that you built, to the marquee network so they all buy the channel and station, if you want that to work, you have to produce winning baseball. At the end of the day, people are going to be there. People are going to show up and they're going to show out, because that's what Cubs fans do. We're not on 35th and Shields. Like, we are in the heart of the north side of Chicago. So people are always going to be there for 120 games. That's just real. But don't forget what it was like in 2016 when you had a mob outside every single game in the playoffs, because that's how excited people were. We're close. I don't give a shit what the fucking Los Angeles Dodgers are doing, what the Atlanta Braves are doing, what any of these other teams are doing. All we can control is what we can control, and that's what we do internally, in-house. That's what we do. Okay, cool. Craig Counsell. Now, in a chess match, Dave Roberts versus Craig Counsell, give me Craig Counsell. Easy. But when you look at everything else from top to bottom, Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, all these other cats that they're bringing in, you're Tyler Glasnow, you're like, damn, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? And don't get it twisted. Our next segment is going to be all about the prospects. We're going to be talking about the development of the team. And I love that stuff. You know me, I'm driving down to Iowa, driving down to Tennessee, South Bend, Myrtle Beach, wherever. I want to learn more about these guys. We're going to be at spring training. It's going to be a blast. But I can't sit up here today and tell you that there is an MVP ready in 2024. It's not Matt Mervis. It's not Brendan Davis. It's not Jordan Wicks. It's not any of these guys. Like, you have to be real and say, while these guys continue to develop into the players that we hope they can become, maybe hopefully MVP caliber players, you have to have something on the field now. You can't be losing 8-1 and say, yeah, man, but did you see the game that PCA had in AAA Iowa today? Cubs fans aren't going for that. Like, that's you have to at some point have a legitimate conversation about what you want to do at the major league level today. It matters. You look at a team like, let's for example even talk about a guy who's a current Chicago Cub. Look at the teams like the Los Angeles Dodgers, and Zach even said it. They didn't have to, but they did. The Dodgers just signed Paxton. Paxton has been horrible for 3 years, but the rest of his career has been amazing. They're willing to take a chance on that because they believe in the system and the people that they have in play to be able to fix and change the mechanics of a guy like James Paxton. So that's terrifying. He's a lefty. You bring in Jackson Ferris. There's a bunch of guys that they have in this pipeline that are great. One of those guys is now a Chicago Cub in Michael Busch. They have Michael Busch blocked and not able to put him at the major league level for years because of guys like Freddie Freeman, because of guys like Justin Turner and Mookie Betts. It's crazy. But they're willing to put money in the current roster while still developing the top prospects. Now, we look at the prospects for the Chicago Cub going into 2024, 1 through 10 as it's ranked. P. Crow Armstrong is obviously the number 1 consensus next to Cade Horton. Michael Busch is number 3. We just got him in a trade for the Los Angeles Dodgers for Jackson Ferris and Hope. Obviously, you could put him at first base. You could DH him. You could put him at third. We really don't know how that's going to look. We'll see that more as spring training continues. Owen Casey, number 4. Kevin Alcantara, a.k.a. the Jaguar, is at number 5. Ben Brown, Matt Shaw, Moises Balestros, James Triantos, and Jordan Wicks are the top 10. Now, 11 through 20 are not anybody to sleep on either. Alexander Canario, Matt Mervis, there's Hayden McRae, BJ Murray, Brennan Davis, Christian Hernandez, the list goes on. There's a lot of guys that you can look at in this farm system and say they are going to be absolute studs. That's just to name a few guys. But, and then you look at the guys you have right now. You have the Dansby Swansons, the Miguel Amayas, the Christopher Morels, the Seiya Suzuki's, who had a phenomenal second half of his season last year. There's a lot of cats on this team that I could look at today. And how did I not even mention Nico Horner? I mean, an absolute stud, an absolute monster. So, you have to take those things into consideration that, the team is great. Don't get that twisted. The team looks great. Everything the team is doing right now is great. I love the direction we're going in. But if you want to really contend in 2024, you have to bring back your best player. You can't sell me that, oh, yeah, well, PCA is on the way. Okay, that's fine. We can have both. There's no reason you can't have both. There's no reason you can't put listen, respectfully, we're not even trying to have this conversation right now, but you could figure out what to do with Ian or Seiya. You could put those two in left and center. Like, dude, that would be literally any ball that goes out into the outfield is caught. It is a black hole in the outfield at Wrigley. Period. Like, that's how great those two are. If you want to put Cody at first base and you have PCA in center, Ian Happ, CCA, Seiya Suzuki, and then obviously at first base, you're going to have Cody Bellinger. You could put Christopher Morel at third and then Michael Busch as your DH. Or vice versa. I don't care. But there's so many different things you can do. So to hear those reports, and what a cornball, but what a bar at the same time. I can't even lie. He said a bar. Scott Boras said, the Cubs got a full belly of Bellinger last year, and they're going to have to open their belts to get Bellinger back in a Cubs uniform. And that's a bar. I can't lie. That's a bar. But man, bro, you have to bring him back. Right now we're still the favorite, but it's a bad look that we are less than a month away, less than 20 days away from pitchers and catchers report, and we still don't have a deal with Cody Bellinger. Cubs con's over, winter meetings is over, all these different things. Like, fuck, Shohei Ohtani signed a $700 million contract. Both sides were happily able to do it. And you're telling me we're having a problem with a $200 million contract when we paid guys like Tyler Chatwood, Jason Hayward, and who else can we? Yu Darvish. No shot at them, but you had no problem paying those guys who did not have MVP caliber seasons for the Chicago Cubs. Yu Darvish had the 1 year of a Cy Young candidacy in 2020, but other than that, you know what I'm talking about? Like, when have we ever had the real conversation that we had an MVP caliber player and let him walk because we weren't willing to give him a good deal? We're not giving him a great deal. $200 million for an MVP caliber player in his prime at 28 years old. Yeah, don't forget Brandon Morrow and Craig Kimbrell. Like, listen, I'm going to end it with this because we got some other stuff we got to get doing tonight. You have to have a conversation if you're Jed Hoyer about what you've done and who you've let go. Now, it's worked out for the majority of guys like Wilson Contreras, the Javier Baez's of the world, the Kyle Schwarbers, the Anthony Rizzos, the Chris Bryants. It's worked out. Those guys didn't live up to $300+ million contracts, 250 plus, even 200. Javi's deal is insane. If he could tap into who he used to be, it's a great deal. But if not, it's horrible. But at some point, you have to make a major move. Dansby Swanson was a great move. Don't get it twisted. But a major move. There's pillars, like I talk about, cannons that we talk about all the time, cannon events. And that is a cannon. Okay, Cody Bellinger. That's a guy that doesn't come into a clubhouse every single day. That's not a guy who's signing with the Las Vegas A's or the Oakland A's, whatever you want to call him. He's not going to certain organizations. A guy like that picked Chicago for a reason. He's a big market player, big market team. The shoe fits, wear it, and we got to wear it. And that's all I really got on that. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you guys are new here, smack that follow button because we have Cubs content coming in all year long. With that being said, I'll check you guys out later. We're going to check us out later talking Hall of Fame ball. I'll also be on Rob's 2 cents later on tonight. We're going to be talking everything NBA. Until then, be safe. You can check us out at theshy.kid on Instagram and TikTok. Till then, check you guys out later. I love you.